If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 236, Two Paths to Power. Domain Expansion, Malevolent Shrine. BZZZZZ. With Ryaman Sukuna's domain unfolding, a bloody Buddhist shrine that was decorated with skulls and looked like it was built atop a mountain of corpses abruptly manifested itself across the demolished cemetery. The moment this shrine appeared, it was like a drop of bloody ink water falling into a calm and serene lake, sending ripples through it and infecting it with sky-shrouding malice. Moreover, these ripples weren't something that normal humans, or even sorcerers for that matter, could face, as they took the form of innumerable slashing attacks that cut everything in their path apart. This erasure began with the bloody shrine as the center and then moved forward in all directions as a sphere, swallowing everything it met. Be it the leftover buildings, the graves, the ground, or even the small dust particles, everything was wiped out. Moreover, this attack was insanely fast, not leaving any time for the opponent to react. However, thankfully for Yuta, before the attack could land on him, his realm also manifested itself into the world, taking the form of an open domain. Domain Expansion, Mirrored Realm. The moment this domain unfolded, a huge red-colored mirror that had golden runes etched all over its borders appeared behind Yuta, and contrary to the bloody and malicious feelings Sukuna's shrine gave, this mirror sent serenity and calmness into the hearts of all those who looked at it. Before switching paths, it was unknown what his previous domain was like. However, after making the transition, this domain center was born based on many factors such as his will, his ability, and his values. It's just that at this moment, none of this was that important, as the instant this mirror appeared, it immediately started functioning as intended. Swish! There, centimeters away from Yuta, the wave of destruction came to an abrupt halt. Then, under the world's expectant eyes, an identical slashing power suddenly emerged from the mirror, crashing into the wave that Sukuna sent prior. Boom! Puff! The moment they clashed, an uncomfortable sound similar to that of nails clawing at a chalkboard echoed across the plane. It was as if each of these slashes was a real metal blade and they kept trying to tear each other apart. This caused a clear division to be manifested in the air, which was then swiftly followed by a small explosion that sent new rubles flying everywhere. It's just that their clash didn't end there, as the moment this clash ended, another one immediately began. Swish! Boom! Crack! Crack! However, the center of the clash wasn't that close to Yuta. Instead, it occurred at the center of the space between them and at a much higher power level. It seems that both fighters focused all of their power on this attack, each trying to overpower the other party. It's weirdly beautiful. Such an amazing scene. These were the words of the different people who were watching this battle from all corners of the world. However, while they were praising the beautiful and amazing scene in front of them, they weren't actually referring to the actual battle. Instead, it is the scene that was miraculously born from the clash between the two domains and the values and emotions which they inadvertently conveyed. With the huge holy mirror on one side and a bloody shrine on the other, the center of the battlefield shone with brilliant golden light and a conflicting dim bloody light. Each of these sides represented different ideals which were clearly presented for all to see. All that was required was for people to just focus and understand the meaning behind it. On one side, the mirror represented the path of goodness, self-sacrifice, friendship, guardianship, and hope. On the other side, the shrine and the mountain of corpses under it clearly presented the path of absolute malice, selfishness, and burning everything to reach one's objective. It is the path of complete self-centeredness and self-interest, where a person's own interests and desires overshadow everything else. These were not simply some unimportant ideals and thoughts. Instead, they also represented the path to power of the people who made them. Should one become stronger to protect others, or should one sacrifice everyone and everything to become stronger? Which path is easier to walk and which path is stronger? These were some questions and thoughts that plagued the Jujutsu world since its creation. It's just that for now, it seems that Sukuna's path is the only path that has been proven to be able to reach complete enlightenment in the Jujutsu world. And while this might have something to do with the negative aspect of this power system, this still makes a big point on the aspect of strength and power. It's just that such thoughts and ideas are yet to be proven in the context of a new power system that has the potential to change everything and give people the opportunity to follow their own paths without needing to change their ideals to grow stronger. And so, to prove something, many tests and experiments are required, and this battle right now could be considered as the first and maybe last test for a philosophical question that may never be answered. It's just that right now, while the observers may be a bit interested in this subject, the fighters themselves didn't care about this at all, as they were still deadlocked, neither of them gaining any advantage. Buzz. bzzzzzzzzz. Bzzzzzzz. However, this soon changed after Yuta suddenly raised his head and truly spoke to Sukuna for the first time since the battle began. It's just that even though he was speaking to Sukuna, Yuta's words seemed to also be directed to all those who were watching. Moreover, rather than a speech, it sounded more like an explanation or even a declaration. Copy and paste, this is my ability. However, it was never stated that one can only paste once. Chapter 237, A Sudden Attack. The moment these words were uttered, they weirdly echoed clearly across the battlefield, suppressing all the other noises caused by their clash. Then, just as these words were heard by all, they were instantly followed by a weird mutation that quickly shrouded the entire battlefield. With the huge scarlet-colored mirror that stood behind Yuta, the center of the mutation, everything around was suddenly covered with a glossy hue. It was as if everything around was being forcefully turned into a reflective surface, a mirror. Moreover, this glossy hue completely ignored all the obstacles it faced and all the attacks that were being thrown all over the place as it kept advancing indomitably, only stopping after it covered the entire battlefield. Seeing this, Yuta, who still maintained his usual indifferent demeanor, suddenly raised his right hand in front of him, using it to form a certain hand sign. Domain, close. Bzzzzzzzzzzz. Swish. The moment this order was given, the open-type domain that Yuta had previously launched suddenly transformed into a closed-type domain. From an outsider's point of view, it looked as if the glossy hue that had covered the entire battlefield suddenly transformed into a large bloody mouth which then swallowed everyone inside. This included both Sukuna and his shrine, and Yuta and his mirror. Crack! This is... Reacting to the sudden shift in scenery, Sukuna, who maintained the same pose and continued his flurry of attacks, couldn't help but glance around in confusion. However, this confusion wasn't because of the change of scenery. After all, getting absorbed into a domain wasn't something new. Instead, it was more about the cognitive dissonance that he was currently experiencing. Hey! Why aren't our domains clashing? It feels as if my domain is the only one being enacted while his domain just turned into a background board. Background board, could it be? I see, interesting, so it's like a very small world. Quickly understanding the situation, a grin couldn't help but appear on Sukuna's face as he got closer to understanding the new power system. However, while he had a great interest in that, he still didn't forget where he currently was as he quickly turned his attention back to Yuta, or more precisely the large mirror behind him. Looking at it, Sukuna immediately noticed a mutation which immediately made him vigilant. Previously, while the mirror stood behind Yuta, it didn't actually reflect anything and instead just acted like some shiny surface. However, after Yuta closed his domain, a reflection appeared for the first time, and this reflection is that of Sukuna's shrine. It's just that before Sukuna could fully understand what that was for, Yuta spoke again, interrupting his thought process as he intended to end the battle just there and then. Multi-mirrored world. Following this command, the silver floor below them seemed to turn into liquid as an immense number of mirrors, large and small, quickly emerged from the floor, encircling the two fighters within. And to make things weirder, each of these mirrors only had the reflection of Sukuna's shrine on them, ignoring everything else around. Paste many times. Hey! So that's your trump card? It's quite boring, a faker will always be a fa. However, before Sukuna could finish his taunts, the mirrors all around him suddenly shone with a bright red light as they were finally activated. Swish! Bzzzzzzz. Boom! In an instant, the slashing attacks that Sukuna was launching toward Yuta were copied and then sent back from every single direction. It was as if there was an army of Sukunas was spawned and then they ordered to attack someone at the same time. Such an attack was so devastating that even Sukuna couldn't continue his attack fractions of a second after its activation. All he could do was stand in place and get completely torn apart by his own attacks. Right now, all that could be seen from where Sukuna was standing was a cloud of blood which completely covered a meter in radius around him. This cloud of blood was caused by the blood that was splattered each time a limb or part of Sukuna got torn apart, getting vaporized into a cloud of blood by the next few attacks. Puff! 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 Seeing this, Yuta, who had been looking slightly worried, couldn't help but smile happily. This is his declaration of victory. It's just that as he smiled happily, Yuta didn't notice the small grin that had appeared on Sukuna's face before quickly disappearing. Moreover, he wasn't the only one to not notice such a detail, as the thoughts of victory were also shared by those watching the battle from all over the world. That's it. I thought that the stronger curse would be stronger, at least it has to match the strongest sorcerer. I agree, however, it's good that it finally ended. We can now move on to the really important part. Important part. Yes, after this, the silver-haired guy should finally declare what he's after. It's just that as most people were about to move on, some were still very skeptical about the situation. I don't know about this, but I feel like something's wrong. Don't be so negative, it's Ove. However, before the man could finish his phrase, his eyes suddenly went wide in shock as he looked at the live broadcast in front of him. This was quickly noticed by the skeptical guy who was talking to him as he also turned his head toward the screen to see what was happening. It's just that as he did so, the calm look on his face soon transformed into a self-deprecating smile. It's indeed over, but not as we've all expected. Chapter 238, Battle Experience. It's finally over. No one has to die now. These were Yuta's thoughts as he watched the bloody scene in front of him, waiting patiently for Sukuna to eventually tire out and die. Now that he was sure of his victory, Yuta could finally relax a bit. However, he also still maintained some level of vigilance just in case something unexpected happens. I really have to admit it, Sukuna is really strong, even if we only talk about his physical prowess. He can actually resist such a level of attacks for such a long period of time. If it weren't for switching paths, I would have died the moment he got serious. Such thoughts and feelings were also shared by those watching the battle, especially from the sorcerer's side, as they understood the situation much more clearly compared to the random people from all over the world. Spicy cod roe! Exclaimed Inumaki, joy apparent on his face. Come on Yuta! Finish him! Said Panda. Even Maki, who had just finished doing an attack, couldn't help but relax slightly as she looked at the large screen in front of her. It's just that sadly for her, there was currently no one near her who she could discuss or share her joy with. However, just then, as most of the sorcerers around were expressing their joy and even declaring victory, Kusakabe, who was standing next to Panda, couldn't help but frown as feelings of unrest filled his heart for some unclear reason. Something's off, it feels like Sukuna didn't go completely all out. Or maybe it's just my imagination. Shaking his head, Kusakabe finally decided not to comment on this as it would attract hatred for no reason. So, instead of doing that, he turned his head to another group of people who were focused on some other things entirely. This group of people was mostly composed of the sorcerer from the other school who didn't have much of a relationship with Yuta and Mei, whose facial expressions remained cold. After all, knowing that Lorien was there, they knew that even if Sukuna won this battle, he wouldn't be able to get out of Shibuya. Moreover, now that Jujutsu sorcery has become something public, they don't have to worry about the pesky stuff such as information about Jujutsu leaking or anything like that anymore. The only thing that they may have to actually worry about is the explosion in the number of curses that will occur after this incident. However, this was obviously thrown to the back of everyone's minds as the situation was still quickly changing. I don't know about Mei, but it seems that the others are more interested in the change of power systems. Heck, even I am very interested in what Yuta has absorbed to actually make him this powerful. I am really curious, can it allow me to finally awaken a cursed technique? However, just as he thought of this, Kusakabe quickly shook his head as he knew that it wasn't time for this. Good luck, Yuta! Meanwhile, just as everyone was wishing him victory, Yuta could be seen smiling lightly, still maintaining the same domain expansion pose. Doing so, he began inputting even more neutral energy into his technique, increasing the level of attack and intending to quickly end this battle. It's just the moment he began doing so, Yuta's eyes abruptly widened in shock and his mouth opened slightly as if he had seen something completely unbelievable. ZNGGGGGG. Following the muffled sound of flesh getting cut apart, Yuta slowly lowered his head in both fear and confusion as he looked at his own chest. Puff! There, under his shocked eyes, a line of blood slowly appeared on his chest, forearm, and biceps. Basically, anything that was on the same level as the line of blood on the chest was also cut alongside it. Then, without waiting for him to further react, the sound of objects falling to the ground echoed as his arms fell, quickly followed by his upper body, which slid to the side, falling right next to them. However, that wasn't all, as if we were to look behind Yuta, a long and narrow dark black line that seemed to split the domain apart was visible. It is unknown when this slit appeared, however, everything was cut off by it, be it the mirrors around, the main mirror that was behind Yuta, or even the realm's barrier. Nothing was spared. This slash was very different from any other one that Sukuna previously used, as it not only targeted space but targeted the world itself. This was a slash that integrated everything Sukuna had ever learned, making it his most powerful attack to date. Crack! Crack! Following the echoes of glass shattering that reverberated across the space, the domain slowly began falling apart and disappearing. Step! Step! Step. Then, as the domain completely faded away, the sound of unheard footsteps suddenly appeared as Sukuna finally emerged from the quickly dissipating cloud of blood that was at the center of the previously erected domain. Brat, did no one tell you that you shouldn't be distracted in battle? However, it wouldn't have mattered anyway. Quickly healing the wounds on his body, Sukuna looked in disdain at Yuta's face, which still maintained its shocked look. Copy and paste, that was your technique. This technique enables you to copy any ability you see, which includes the experience of the user. Doing so, you can then use it as you see fit, which you call as paste. This ability is slightly annoying, however, it's not that big of an issue. Shaking his head, the grin on Sukuna's face grew bigger as he continued speaking, unknown who he was explaining his thoughts to. 1. When pasting abilities, you have a certain limit. It seems that you can only use one ability at a time when you expand your domain. I don't know if this limit doesn't exist when you are not using your domain, but it sure is present when you enact it, said Sukuna, raising his index finger. 2. Even though you can copy the degree of development of techniques and the experience of using them, you first have to see your opponent use it to such a level. For example, if I used some fire ability and only used it to the level of lighting a match, you won't gain any experience from me, continued Sukuna as he raised his second finger. 3. It appears that copying still has a limit, as you can't copy experience when it reaches a level that's way beyond you, he said, raising his third finger. So, all I had to do to win was keep my attacks at a level that I myself can resist and then wait for an opportunity to finish you with one blow. Frankly, I could have ended it much quicker if I had used some other abilities at the same time, however, that would have destroyed your body. Saying this, Sukuna then continued walking toward Yuta's corpse as an excited look appeared on his face. Finally, it's time to see what this power system is all about. Chapter 239, Hell's Kitchen. Stating this, Sukuna's focus was then entirely shifted toward the lower half of Yuta's dissected body, and more precisely near his gut area where his energy reserves were located. Right now, all Sukuna wanted to do was to grab this new energy and then swallow and assimilate it. It has the same origin as cursed energy. There shouldn't be a problem with doing this. After all, it feels like it is the merger between positive and negative energy with some other things added. Not that it's important now, as this is a gamble that I am willing to take to reach greater heights. So what if I die? So what if I lose everything? I don't care. I'm willing to give it all up. I'm willing to sacrifice everything. Calculations. Plots? I don't care about any of that right now. His resolve not wavering for a single moment, the grin on Sukuna's face grew more and more twisted as his excitement finally reached its peak. Let's begin. Crack. Puff. Swiftly digging into the meal in front of him, causing blood to splatter everywhere, Sukuna showcased firsthand to the world why Crunchyroll mistranslated his domain as Malevolent Kitchen. However, as horrifying as this scene was, the grotesque and cannibalistic act was enough to wake all those who were still in a daze and hadn't reacted to what happened yet. The first to react was of course Rika, who instantly collapsed to the ground, her mind unable to process the nightmarish scene in front of her. Why, Yuta? And no. This can't be. I must still be dreaming. This must be a nightmare. It's just that while her reaction was quick enough, the other sorcerers weren't that far behind, as they quickly reacted, slightly turning their heads away from the screen, not wanting to continue watching the next scenes of Hell's Kitchen. Puff. However, while there were many sorcerers around as they were grouping up, the most notable of them was Kusakabe, who gritted his teeth, biting off the cigarette he was smoking as an uncomfortable feeling filled his heart. I knew it. I knew that it wouldn't be that easy. Things never are that simple, especially for us sorcerers. It's just that despite feeling uncomfortable, that was about all the feelings that Kusakabe actually felt, as he didn't have much of a relationship with Yuta. This somewhat calm response was very different from Panda, Inumaki, and Maki's, who each instantly fell silent, clenching their fists tightly and wishing to immediately rush there and take revenge. And as a matter of fact, once the cannibalistic scene started unfolding, Maki had already begun making her way toward the battlefield. She could accept the fact that a friend of hers died in battle, however, she wouldn't just stand there and watch his body being treated like that. However, even if she did so, she knew that even if she reached the battlefield, she might not actually be able to do anything substantial, as someone would have probably reached there quicker than her. What is that guy planning? Vomit. Meanwhile, opposite to the somewhat calm reaction of sorcerers who are relatively used to the deaths of their companions, the reaction from normal people all over the world was much more violent, as people could be seen vomiting everywhere, making their surroundings smell like a dumpster. Boog. Puff. Monster. Someone must kill him. Nuke him. Just end him. Such a reaction was of course to be expected, as most people have never seen such a brutal sight in their lives. Moreover, this scene also acted as a base to help them further understand what cursed spirits truly are and how malevolent and evil they could be. Thinking of this, the previously calm population couldn't help but remember the cursed spirits around, which were being held and frozen by some sort of mysterious power. Looking at them, feelings of fear, anxiety, and panic spread like a wave, causing everyone to swiftly move further away from any cursed spirit in sight. It's just that what they didn't know was that their fear and anxiety acted as a boost that enabled the birth and growth of an innumerable number of nightmare spirits within the nightmare realm. If Lorien were awake right now, he would most likely thank Sukuna for his timely help. What's going on with this world? I knew that this must be the end. I knew it. However, just then, as people were losing hope, a beacon suddenly shone from the distance, illuminating their path as Lorien, who could be seen sitting on the large broadcasting screen, suddenly moved. Yes. It's him. He must be able to deal with it. Come on. Wake up. Meanwhile, unaware of what the people and many sorcerers were thinking, Lorien, who had just restored his energy reserves to their full state, couldn't help but frown slightly as he sensed that something was amiss. Why did I get this feedback? There shouldn't be a new dream path walker. Scratching his head, Lorien finally decided to use his authority as the pathmaker to check the details, and as he did so, he finally couldn't help but facepalm and raise his head to the sky speechlessly. I shouldn't have expected much from a kid. However, to be honest, Sukuna's victory was determined even before the battle began, as there is a large difference in experience between them. Without sufficient enough power to overpower Sukuna, winning against him is quite the pain in the ass, as he is a great fighter. Saying this, Lorien then stood up and looked toward the direction that Sukuna was in before adding. However, it seems that Sukuna still couldn't get past his bad habit of stealing stuff. Well, it appears that I'll have to educate him personally. Chapter 240, Hero or Villain? Thinking of this, Lorien's eyes couldn't help but narrow in joy, as he had waited a very long time for this. Ever since he came to the Jujutsu world, Lorien wanted to kill Sukuna, or at least beat him up severely. Frankly, if it weren't for him still being somewhat useful for his plan, he would have most likely been dealt with a very long time ago. So, now that Lorien finally had a chance to achieve this, he of course wouldn't let it go to waste. Ha 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 ha, I can't wait. Deciding on this, Lorien didn't waste any time as he immediately teleported over to the Aoyama cemetery. Swish! Abruptly appearing from thin air, Lorien immediately began looking around the place, and in doing so, he couldn't help but shake his head and comment jokingly. Tisk, 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 now that I think of it, if we take into account the amount of destruction done at Shibuya and add to it the demolition done here, it's easy to guess that the cost of repair will most likely be astronomical. However, I wonder who will pay for it and if it will ever be repaired. Ultimately, not to mention the Japanese government, God knows if any governmental entity will still remain after I fully launch the Dream Path. After all, from then on, it will be a world where everyone fights for hegemony, and if everything goes according to my prediction, the world will be divided into city-states. It's just that as he reached here, Lorien couldn't help but shake his head, throwing this thought aside as he knew that he had already deviated too far from the main point. Well, all the political bullshit aside, this place is actually a perfect choice for a battlefield. After finishing with Sukuna, I won't need to find a place to bury him. Ha 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 ha. Saying this, Lorien couldn't help but laugh out loud, completely ignoring the repercussions of the words he had just uttered out loud. Ever since the beginning of this world-shattering event, no one actually had any idea about the purpose and intention behind it. But now that Lorien stated his prediction, which gave everyone a small taste of what was to come, all those watching, be it normal people or sorcerers, immediately began analyzing his words, trying to decipher the meaning behind them. It seems that civilization as we all know it is in its last moments. Everything will return to the era of city-states. Why? And how? Everyone fights for hegemony. What does he mean by that? I can't think of anything that will make such a prediction actually possible. Is this person truly a good guy? He seems to be more dangerous than any of the villains that we've seen tonight. Well, it seems that this is actually true. Have we been cheering for the villain all this time? What's even going on in this world? Who and where are the good guys? Don't you understand? There is no such thing as heroes and villains, it's all a matter of perspective and where one stands. Meanwhile, just as similar scenes were unfolding in all corners of the world with some few exceptions here and there, Lorien, who maintained a constant small smile on his face, finally turned his attention toward Yuta, or at least what was left of him. Step. 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 Taking a couple of steps in his direction, Lorien quickly reached his target. Tisk, what a clean cut, I can still sense the remaining spatial attributes of this attack. Lowering his head, Lorien immediately began assessing the damage while also thinking about his next course of action. Should I save him or not? Scratching his chin, Lorien thought about this for a couple of moments before finally extending his hand toward Yuta and beginning to use his power. As one of the first Dream Path walkers and one who had actually walked a long way on this path, you should have a bit of privilege. Bzzz. The moment Lorien began using his power, his body bloomed with a mysterious multicolored light which caused reality itself to get suppressed. Then, following this suppressive power, reality began distorting, causing the impossible to become possible. Bzzz. There, in front of Lorien, before anyone could react, a glitch-like effect appeared which was followed by Yuta's cut-apart body suddenly getting restored to its fully intact state. This should do it. Clap. Clap. Patting his hands together so as to remove the inexistent dust which in turn caused a clapping noise to echo as a consequence, Lorien decided not to waste any more time with Yuta teleporting him away from the battlefield before he could wake up. However, while Lorien wasn't that much interested in Yuta's state, others weren't as indifferent as him. Yuta. Of course, with Yuta being the main subject, the first to react was predictably Rika, who abruptly stopped collapsing and falling apart as tears of sadness were swiftly transformed into those of joy. This was also echoed by those close to Yuta and some of the new Yuta fans who were relieved seeing him safe and sound. And of these close to Yuta was Maki, who also stopped her movement after seeing Lorien appearing on the battlefield. Tisk, I knew he would do something like this, she said, not at all surprised by what had just happened. However, I'm now more interested in what he'll do with Sukuna. She continued, looking quite excited. It's just that while all of this was happening, Lorien didn't know or care about any of it as his attention was turned towards Sukuna, who was undergoing a transformation. Interesting. Very interesting. I'm now curious as to how this will go. Will he gain something or fail miserably? Chapter 241, Metamorphosis. Will he gain something or fail miserably? Thinking of this, Lorien felt very intrigued by the situation. After all, it's very rare for him to encounter something interesting without him personally trying to create said thing or event. Moreover, other than personal interest, Sukuna's situation actually had very serious implications for Lorien's future plans and how he may proceed with expanding the Dream Path in future worlds. After all, the results of these actions will show whether someone can actually steal from the Dream Path without any repercussions or not. So, now that Sukuna volunteered as an experimental subject, Lorien of course wouldn't refuse such a good thing. Tisk, it seems that I have misunderstood the guy. I'll nominate him for the best curse of the day. Still joking around and not appearing that serious, Lorien silently activated his power to observe the actual situation inside Sukuna's body. So it is as I have expected. This guy is trying to take advantage of neutral energy and the characteristics of the Dream Path to sublimate his own power. It seems that he wasn't joking when he stated that he is willing to burn everything to reach greater heights. After all, the danger of such an approach is very clear even to a novice, so it's impossible for him to overlook it. However, luckily for him, it appears that this is actually going much smoother than both he and I expected. Continuing to observe Sukuna, Lorien quickly noticed that while the King of Curses was able to forcefully absorb neutral energy into his body by absorbing it from Yuta's body, it appeared that he was completely unable to control, manipulate, or do anything to it. However, luckily for him, it seems that this was completely irrelevant to his objective, as the moment said energy entered Sukuna's body it immediately rioted, causing an uncontrollable chain reaction to ensue inside of the King of Curses. This chain reaction started with the cursed energy inside of Sukuna, which began transforming into neutral energy before it then began affecting his cursed technique, also reconstructing it in the process. Seeing this, Lorien couldn't help but nod silently in approval, appearing quite happy with what he was seeing. Well, it seems that the assimilation power of the Dream Path is even stronger than I have previously anticipated. As for why he would be happy because of this instead of feeling worried that people will steal power that was not theirs, that's because the moment Sukuna's curse technique began transforming, Lorien immediately received feedback from the Dream Path in the form of a new ability and the strengthening of his inner dream realm. It's as I thought, my authority as the path creator is fundamentally built into it. This means that whoever uses neutral energy or is transformed by it is under my influence. It doesn't matter how said person touched it, but this authority is completely unsolvable. Thinking of this, Lorien couldn't help but smile as he couldn't wait to see the look on Sukuna's face once he realizes this. However, shaking his head, Lorien quickly threw this thought aside as he turned his attention to the new ability that he had just gained from Sukuna. It's very interesting but surprising at the same time. Quite fitting for the King of Curses. However, the only aspect that interests me is the cleave and dismantle, which was evolved into the general concept of cutting. With it, I am confident in improving my swordsmanship to the next level. My swordsmanship follows the concept of extreme, and it just happens that Sukuna's ability also follows a similar approach of cutting everything. They are really compatible with each other. Looking a bit more into the newly gained ability, Lorien then turned his attention again toward Sukuna and activated his chrono eyes. While Sukuna's ability evolved to a higher level, this is none of my business. What I care more about is his knowledge. I usually don't like doing this, however, Sukuna's 1000 years of experience is very precious. This is especially the case for his fighting experience and all the cursed techniques he had seen or know of, which alone greatly expands my knowledge base. So, without any hesitation, Lorien proceeded to copy all of Sukuna's hard-earned experience and power using his eyes, giving the latter a taste of his own medicine. Hey if you try to steal something from me, then expect a similar response. However, it's not a big deal, even a robber gets robbed sometimes. Shaking his head, Lorien threw the messy thoughts aside as he then sat down, legs crossed, and began assimilating the copied experience, making it his own. Sigh. I have to admit, my ability is really broken. Leaving these hypocritical words of self-criticism hanging in the air, Lorien suppressed the happy smile that tried making its way into his face as he forcefully closed his eyes so he could focus on the task at hand. Wake up quickly, King of Curses, I've prepared a lot of games for you. I hope that you'll like them. However, while Lorien was having fun completely following his whims, his actions looked very confusing to those observing the battlefield and analyzing it frame by frame. Why doesn't he attack Sukuna while he's still in that state? Is there something preventing him from doing so? This doesn't make any sense. These were the thoughts of the normal people watching the battle, which was also echoed by the Jujutsu sorcerers who wished that they could teleport there and kill Sukuna before he could awaken. It's just that, not to mention the ability to teleport there, it's unknown if they could achieve their wishes even if Sukuna just stood there and let them attack him. Damn it! Does this guy want to have a fair battle with him? Just end it. However, it's a pity that even though such calls for action continued for a few minutes, they were ultimately for naught, as under their angry and depressed eyes, the King of Curses, Sukuna, finally opened his eyes. Chapter 242, Deprived. Swish. The moment Sukuna's eyes were snapped open, all those watching immediately fell silent as they focused all of their attention on the screen above their heads, not wanting to miss any moment. Crackle. Crackle. Moving his newly transformed body around, a crackling noise echoed across the empty cemetery as Sukuna began analyzing his own changes. This is even better than I had previously expected. He thought as shock and wonder became apparent on his face. The merging of negative and positive energies giving birth to a higher force. This force in turn allows for the cursed technique engraved within one's body to evolve, which also includes one's domain expansion. Even though I don't like that guy, I must admit that what he did is brilliant. However, the only problem with this is that I have to get used to it and change some of my engraved habits. Expressing his thoughts about the new power system, not knowing that he had missed the true essence of this power because of his lack of vision, Sukuna didn't linger long on this point as he turned his attention toward the only person left in the cemetery other than him. As expected, he is here. Swish. The instant Sukuna determined the identity of the man sitting not that far away from him, he didn't hesitate at all and immediately launched a full-powered slash toward him. Bzzzzz. Swish. Crack. Crack. Compared to Sukuna's previous attacks, this slash powered by his newly transformed CT and neutral energy appeared much stronger as it left behind a spatial crack wherever it passed. Looking from afar, it was as if someone took a knife and cleaved space apart, leaving an immense dark gully in his wake. Seeing this, those watching the battle immediately held their breath as they looked in both fear and worry at the scene in front of them. Damn it! This is what happens when you play fair with villains. He should have killed him earlier when he hadn't woken up. Look what he's done now. Damn it! Arrogance and death have always walked hand in hand. Wasn't the saying greed and death? I just adapted it to the situation. However, as nervous, fearful, and indignant as these people felt, it seemed that their worry was finally for nothing, as before the sky splitting could reach its target, it abruptly stopped mid-air, unable to move an inch forward. Then, before anyone could react, this attack got silently erased by some sort of mysterious power, not leaving any trace behind. Moreover, this erasure wasn't only limited to the attack itself, as even the damage caused to the fabric of space was also removed in a silent and eerie manner. "Can't you play it fair once in your life?" suddenly spoke Lorien, his closed eyes slowly opening as he then turned his head towards Sukuna. "That was nothing but a greeting. You call a sneak attack a greeting? Ha, if that was enough to kill you, then you are simply not worth my time." Hearing this, Lorien just shrugged, deciding not to go further into this topic, as he instead started observing Sukuna trying to study and analyze any new changes. "It seems that we can't keep calling you the King of Curses anymore, as you are no longer a cursed spirit. Indeed, I have gone beyond it, an entirely new species. Nightmare Spirit, that's the name. However, I don't know if you can even be called that, as you are still weirdly in the middle right now. Nightmare Hui. A fitting name." Noticing how Sukuna ignored half of his statement, Lorien couldn't help but shake his head, deciding to end their conversation there and instead focus on studying the Nightmare Spirit in front of him. "Tisk, my authority as the path creator is really useful for stuff like this. It's basically like root access to the entire dream path." Well, he actually reached the peak of the outer dream realm. That was quick. However, that's to be expected considering Sukuna's personality and the characteristics of the dream path, which focuses more on willpower instead of pure energy. Frankly, if we were to look at Sukuna's power right now, we can even call him a semi-law level being. However, it's a pity that he had met me. Thinking of this, a wicked smile slowly crawled into Lorien's face as he looked at the curse in front of him teasingly. "So, what do you think about the new power system?" "It's not bad, brat, you did a good job," praised Sukuna, still not realizing that he fell into a very deep trap. Hearing this praise, the smile on Lorien's face only grew wider as he continued speaking. "Well, I won't comment on your methods of stealing power, as it's something to be expected. However, you really made the wrong decision this time. Hey! You know that this power system was created by me, right? And? What's your point?" responded Sukuna, suddenly feeling that something was wrong. "Alright, to make things easier for you, let's look at things from my own point of view," stated Lorien before quickly continuing his speech, not leaving time for Sukuna to respond. "I, as a path creator, would of course think about stuff like people stealing power and then using it against me, especially when considering the potential of the power system that I have created, so, do you think that I don't have a way to deal with things like this?" Saying this, Lorien didn't forget to look mockingly at Sukuna, who finally looked somewhat shaken and upset for the first time since his appearance. "Did you finally understand your situation? However, that's not important now. Dream Path Authority, Deprive. Chapter 243, Desperation. Dream Path Authority, Deprive." The moment Lorien executed his authority, the power within Sukuna's body started shaking and destabilizing, causing the newly transformed Nightmare Spirit to be unable to control himself. Then, to make the situation even worse for him, this lack of control over his own power quickly turned into a lack of existence of power under his shocked and dreary eyes. Not only was he unable to control his newly transformed CT, but his neutral energy also became unmovable, while his physical strength was also greatly suppressed. Right now, not to mention special grade sorcerers, even any first-grade sorcerer might be able to beat him if they play their cards right. What's going on? From the highest peak of joy to the abyss of despair, such a sudden transformation caused even the 1,000-year-old cursed spirit that didn't know what fear was like to feel this emotion for the first time since its birth. However, this fear only lasted a fraction of a second before quickly becoming fuel for the dark emotions that replaced it: indignation, anger, wrath, and finally madness. Looking at these plethora of emotions that continued to flash across Sukuna's face, the look of interest which was endowed with a bit of malice that had been drawn on Lorien's face quickly grew wider as he couldn't help but say to the curse in front of him. "Well, did you learn your lesson at least? Only rely on your own power, and more precisely power that you created yourself. Stealing stuff like this might help you gain quick improvements, but you never know what you are truly walking into. But it seems that it's a bit too late now, don't you think?" Continuing to speak, Lorien didn't forget to pause after each sentence so he could take in Sukuna's expressions while he mocked him. However, to his disappointment, Lorien was soon unable to see any of it as Sukuna's facial expressions quickly became bleak, not allowing his opponent to enjoy himself. Tisk, you're quite boring. Saying this, Lorien, who had waited for a response but got none, decided to push things to the next stage to further stimulate his prey. Alright, now that I think of it, this whole situation seems a bit unfair to you, as you didn't even have a chance to show your power, so let me give you a proposition. Noticing that he had attracted Sukuna's attention with these words, Lorien couldn't help but nod silently before continuing. How about I give you back your power and then fight you? I won't be using my authority as the path creator, and if you even scratch me, I'll allow you to live. What do you think? However, different from the response that Lorien expected, this only caused Sukuna to grow even more irritated as anger leaked from under his bleak mask. Scratch you? I am going to kill you, brat. You've got great ambitions there, buddy, keep it up. Responded Lorien as if he was talking to some little child that he had met on the streets. So, can I consider this as an agreement? He continued relentlessly. Well, silence is a sign of agreement as far as I know, so I'll take it as that. He finally declared. Stating this, Lorien didn't waste any time as he raised his right hand and snapped his fingers, causing the shackles that he had placed on Sukuna to crack and disappear. It's just that as he did so, he didn't forget to mock his opponent even more as he stated. Oh, I forgot to say this, I won't be holding back in this battle, so you could also just kill yourself if you don't want to continue participating in my play. After all, I have never liked to force people to have fun with me. However, what Lorien received as a response this time wasn't words, rather, it was a space-dividing slash that went straight towards his face. It's just that as a response to this attack, Lorien, who had completely let go of any and all constraints and decided to fully utilize his reality warping powers, just extended his hand forward as a response. But, the consequence of such a simple act was him easily holding the slash with his bare hand and then magically turning it into soap bubbles, which he playfully blew away. Nice attack. However, is that all you got? Swish. Swish. The moment Lorien uttered this, he immediately received a couple more slashing attacks from Sukuna, who then immediately began rushing forward toward Lorien, trying to turn the theme of battle into hand-to-hand combat. Seeing this, Lorien just glanced at the attacks, not bothering to even move a muscle to respond to them. However, even without him having to move, with his reality warping power fully unfolding, these attacks were magically erased with no resistance to speak of. Then, with his attention focused on Sukuna, Lorien gave off a long sigh before unsheathing his sword and holding it in front of him in a very relaxed manner. This was just in time for the arrival of Sukuna, who immediately began using his forearms to attack while also using his ability to launch surprise attacks between each physical attack. However, all of this seemed to be for nothing, as Lorien kept easily dodging all of Sukuna's attacks at a hard width and erasing any ability type attacks that were released. Doing so, Lorien didn't forget to slash forward from time to time, causing bloody wounds to appear all over Sukuna's immense body. It seems that you have fallen into a misconception. Having a large form doesn't mean that you'll have the advantage in hand-to-hand combat. Have you not noticed? Not only is your physical power below mine, but even your martial arts is. Stating this fact, Lorien glanced at Sukuna's serious yet wrathful expression as the latter continued launching his flurry of attacks at him before continuing. Swish. 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 Well, the only advantage you had over me was experience. However, thanks to you, that's not the case anymore. Swish. What do you mean? Dodging another attack, Lorien even had the time to shrug his shoulders before responding. While you tried to steal power from me, I also took the opportunity to steal a few things from you. However, it seems that I never had the chance to thank you, so, here we are, thanks I guess. F***ck. What have you done, you white-haired bitch? Chapter 244, Izanagi? F***ck. What have you done, you white-haired bitch? It doesn't matter, after all, it's not something you should be worrying about right now. Responded Lorien as he ducked under another one of Sukuna's attacks. Swish. Swish. Boom. However, as this dangerous routine of dodging and counter-attacking from time to time continued, it soon became monotonous, causing Lorien to feel somewhat bored. After all, even though dodging attacks at a hair's width and slashing Sukuna from time to time felt somewhat exciting at the beginning, such a thrill could only last for so long as boredom quickly took over. So, to spice things up a little, Lorien finally decided to be a bit more ruthless with both himself and his opponent. I have never actually tried this, I hope that it works, otherwise, It'll be quite embarrassing. Not hesitating any longer, Lorien's eyes began twirling in place as he thought of a way to seamlessly execute his plan without his opponent noticing it, otherwise, it wouldn't be fun. Alright, this should do it. His thoughts still racing at light speed, Lorien focused his attention on Sukuna's face, not wanting to miss any of his facial expressions. However, as he did so, it seems that while defending and dodging Sukuna's flurry of attacks, Lorien finally made a mistake as he appeared to react 1 second a bit too late to one of Sukuna's palm slashes. Noticing this, the King of Curses, who had been attacking without rest, immediately reacted, his eyes shining with murderous intent as he immediately slashed at Lorien's waist using one of his forehands as the weapon. However, while doing so, Sukuna didn't forget to withdraw a portion of his power so he could defend in case all of this was just a trap. After all, while the chance of such an opportunity appearing in quick hand-to-hand combat was quite big, Sukuna still felt that something was wrong with the whole situation. It's just that to his surprise and to the shock of all those who were watching, his attack actually landed on its target and also managed to do damage for the first time since the battle began. Moreover, this wasn't any normal damage, as Sukuna's powerful slashing attack which landed on Lorien's waist was enough to cut his opponent in half. This sort of damage was something even Phil Swift with his flex tape couldn't fix. This actually worked. Still in a daze, Sukuna's expression froze alongside his body, which maintained his slashing form. After all, never in his wildest imagination would he have thought that this battle would end this easily. However, compared to Sukuna's surprise and shock, the fright and fear felt by those watching the battle was bigger, as Lorien's loss would mean their end. Of course, the ones who were most frightened were Yuki, Maki, and Lorien's direct subordinates at the Tunisian Sorcerer's HQ. It's just that such feelings, be it for normal people or sorcerers, only lasted for a moment as they quickly calmed down after thinking logically about the situation. This doesn't make sense. If he's truly dead, then why are the broadcasting screens still there? And indeed, it is as everyone expected, as following the loud thud caused by Lorien's body parts falling into the ground, the corpse suddenly started dematerializing quickly before completely disappearing from the face of the earth. Then, what followed was Lorien's abrupt appearance next to Sukuna, which was followed by a left hook to the jaw of the King of Curses. Swish! Boom! Unable to react to the sudden change, Sukuna couldn't defend against this attack, causing him to shoot to the side like a rag doll, rolling uncontrollably on the ground for a while before finally managing to come to a halt. Puff! Spitting a mouthful of blood, Sukuna wobbly stood up again, healing the damage caused to him by the punch in the process. However, compared to the sudden attack he received, Sukuna was more worried about what had happened with Lorien before that. What was that? I am sure that my attack landed. Moreover, I am sure that his body was truly cut at that moment. However, I don't understand how he simply restored his body. No, rather than restoring his body, it was as if he denied the fact that the attack even happened. Wait, that could be it. Thinking of Lorien's ability, Sukuna's heart immediately sank, unable to suppress the shock in his eyes as he looked at the man in front of him. This detail was swiftly captured by Lorien, who couldn't help but tease his opponent at this moment. By the looks of it, it appears that I don't need to explain what I did. This saves me a lot of trouble. However, do you like it? I copied an ability from a show I've seen. This ability is called Izanagi. Saying this, Lorien paused again as he instead focused his attention on Sukuna, trying to find any signs of wavering or fear. However, to his disappointment, he found none of the emotions he was looking for. Instead, Sukuna actually had excitement mixed with his anger. Noticing this, Lorien couldn't help but feel puzzled at the situation. After all, he was sure that he noticed fear earlier. However, since the battle began, no such feelings had been found, which isn't logical at all. What's going on with this guy? I wanted him to beg for mercy or at least show clear signs of fear. Is he doing it on purpose or? Frowning lightly, Lorien finally couldn't help but think more deeply about the situation. Could it be? The fear that I sensed in him earlier wasn't actually because of me. Instead, it was because of his loss of power. It would seem now that this guy doesn't actually fear death. Instead, he is afraid of dying powerless. Looking at the cursed spirit in front of him that had already begun getting ready to attack once more, Lorien, who came into this battle full of malice and arrogance, finally couldn't help but look in appreciation at his opponent. It seems that I've underestimated you, King of Curses. Chapter 245, True Power. It seems that I've underestimated you quite a bit, King of Curses. Saying this in an eerily calm tone, the relaxed expression on Lorien's face slowly faded away, turning into a serious one as he decided to give his opponent enough respect. There is no need to play around anymore. I don't care about seeing any expressions or reactions. This is not someone that I should face jokingly, as his personality demands some respect. So, at the very least, let me give him a proper burial. With this decision being taken, the way Lorien used his power instantly changed as he started flaring his aura for the first time since the battle began. Previously, while Lorien was visible to the naked eye, his presence was actually inexistent, as thanks to his perfect control over power and to his reality warping powers, he was basically one with nature. This made it so that earlier, no matter how Sukuna or any of Lorien's other opponent tried to perceive his presence, they had to do it through their five senses. However, all of this was thrown out of the window right now, as in Sukuna's perception, the emptiness in front of him suddenly transformed into an abyss-like existence that swallowed heaven and earth. With Lorien's aura piercing through the fabrics of reality, making the world itself creak like old wooden boards, his reality warping power also began manifesting itself freely with utterly no constraints. Right now, if anyone with reality, dream, cause and effect, karma-related ability, or any law-level being for that matter were to look at the space covered by Lorien's divine sense, they'd immediately notice a horrifying fact. At this moment, it was as if someone had forcefully seized control of the world's authority. Right now, the very fabric of reality itself seemed to contort and twist as cause and effect lost their very meaning. Here, in this surreal realm formed by Lorien's power, nothing seemed significant anymore, as all forms of resistance were rendered futile and devoid of any purpose. The first to sense such change was of course Sukuna, who was standing right in front of Lorien as he prepared to launch his next attack. However, faced with this pressure that seemed to originate from all directions with heaven and earth itself as its origin, Sukuna couldn't help but freeze in place as his muscles tensed up and his blood ran cold. What's going on with this pressure? Why did this guy suddenly turn this serious? Move, move, move. Why can't my body move? His body freezing in place, unable to move even an inch forward, Sukuna gritted his teeth, causing an ear-piercing noise to echo as he tried to forcefully break through this invisible blockade. However, what he didn't know was that this had nothing to do with Lorien, as it was actually his instincts and his unconsciousness going haywire, forcing him to stand down and urging him to run away from the entity standing before him. It's just that sadly enough, such a self-defense mechanism couldn't stand long in front of someone as strong-willed as Sukuna, who was finally able to regain control over his shaky body and began trying to launch his previously prepared attack. Yet, just as he was about to do so, his body froze once again, but this time for an entirely different reason. This is... Just as Sukuna was about to launch his attack, his vision suddenly blurred as future scenes of an untold future flashed before his eyes. In this grim future, Sukuna saw himself successfully launching the attack just for it to get erased. Then, he saw his upper right hand blow up into a mist of blood and him unable to heal it no matter how he tried. This was the last scene he saw before his consciousness returned to reality, causing him to get drenched in cold sweat. However, before he could feel happy about escaping a disaster, an eerie scene suddenly occurred under the puzzled and uncomprehending eyes of the entire world. Swish! Puff! Abruptly, and before anyone could react, the upper right hand of the King of Curses was blown up into a mist of blood, causing some red droplets to get splattered on Sukuna's shocked face. This as a consequence caused him to swiftly react and jump back to create some distance from his opponent as he tried to heal his wounded arm. However, as he had expected, this was for naught. When did he attack? And what was that future I just saw, and why did the results there manifest themselves into reality? With more than 100 questions popping into his brain, Sukuna looked solemnly at the indifferent man in front of him, trying to find some answer. However, it's a pity that no one in this world is capable of answering this question right now other than Lorien himself, as that would require someone who has reality, or cause and effect related powers, or someone at the law level. After all, only such people would be able to notice that the moment Sukuna had malicious intent targeting Lorien and was about to attack, the intricate web of cause and effect rippled through the entire world, getting twisted and distorted before a reactionary force was unleashed as to extinguish the audacious ant that tried to target its master. Such a reaction was completely automatic without Lorien actually having to do anything on his own. Absurdly enough, in this state of full power release, Lorien didn't have to do anything manually, as both states of attack and defense were based purely on intention and will. If someone tried to attack Lorien, then he'd get backlashed by the entire world, and if Lorien had malicious intent toward someone, then that person would be hurt, and if Lorien actually had killing intent toward someone, then that person would be abruptly killed. It's as simple as that. There were no flashy moves, no charging attacks, and no technique to speak of. This is the power of true reality warping, the true power of twisting cause and effect, a glimpse of the lost age. Chapter 246, an inevitable ending. However, it's a pity that all of this was unknown to Sukuna, who after suffering permanent damage from the first backlash didn't back down but instead got ready to launch another attack. It's just that the moment he had the intention to do so, another vision materialized before his eyes, foretelling an illusory future that swiftly dissolved into an unavoidable backlash. Damn it, once again. Swish. Puff. Unable to defend or even react to the unstoppable backlash, Sukuna's last right arm silently disintegrated into nothingness. Puff. Holding onto his right side with his left arms, Sukuna couldn't help but grit his teeth as he looked at the indifferent man standing before him. Even when I have fully focused, I was not able to find the origin of the attack. One moment my arm was there, and the next it was gone. Rather than needing something to cause it, this backlash feels like something that should happen. It feels like something completely natural and integral to the world. Instead of an external attack, it's more like one of the fundamental forces of the universe, like gravity, space, and time. There isn't a reason as to why it exists, it simply does. The only thing that I sensed at that moment were the fundamental laws of this world pushing against me. However, while the situation is bad, it is also an opportunity. Maybe, I can use this to glimpse at the next level. Thinking of this, Sukuna quickly resolved himself and prepared to attack once again. After all, he doesn't actually have any other options. It's just that, as he had expected, the moment he had the intention of doing so, he was swiftly met with a quick and destructive counterattack. Swish. Puff. However, luckily for him, it seems that because his malicious intent wasn't that high this time, given that his actual objective was to analyze the backlashes he was receiving rather than intending to harm Lorien, the damage he endured this time wasn't enough to destroy another hand of his. Immediately noticing this, Sukuna couldn't help but get more motivated, causing him to quickly prepare another wave of successive attacks. Swish. Puff. Swish. Puff. Swish. Puff. Repeating this a number of times under Lorien's bewildered sight, the accumulated damage caused Sukuna to look like a bloody figure with no place intact in his body. If it weren't for him reducing his malice and his powerful tenacity, Sukuna would have most likely already fallen unconscious. Is this guy trying to analyze my attacks so he could further improve his power? Will he really be able to achieve this? Quickly realizing what was happening, Lorien, who was planning to quickly finish the battle, couldn't help but stop in his tracks. Well, let's just wait then, let's see if he wins the race. Will he get killed by the successive backlashes before he succeeds in launching an attack, or will he be able to evolve? This is really interesting. Previously, Sukuna was able to create a spatial slash thanks to his accumulated knowledge in the past thousands of years and all the samples Lorien left him. However, it's still unknown if Sukuna's knowledge base and foundation are enough for him to take a glimpse at the laws of this world. It's similar to someone who has never studied maths. No matter how much you show him the symbols and how simple the equation is, they won't understand it. However, if someone has mathematical knowledge, then even if he doesn't know the specific equation, he might actually be able to understand it if he is smart enough. Sukuna's current situation is very similar to this example, so Lorien really wonders if the curse in front of him can actually create a miracle. Alright then, let's stand by for now. Finally coming to a decision, Lorien crossed his hands in front of him and kept gazing indifferently at Sukuna, not planning to do anything. However, his intentions actually caused the backlash that Sukuna was receiving to get reduced, thereby giving him more time to advance. Come on! Come on! Come on! I can feel it, it's very close. Gritting his teeth and forgetting everything around him, Sukuna seemed to enter a mysterious and silent realm as his spirit sought enlightenment. It is here, faced with unparalleled pressure and standing at the edge between life and death, where one can most clearly see the true essence of things. Such conditions were very rare for people as powerful as Sukuna and Gojo, however, these were actually the conditions most appropriate for people like them to improve. Swish. Puff. Swish. Puff. With this act of self-destruction continuing for a few more minutes, Sukuna's body continued to get reduced into nothingness bit by bit. Standing in front of him, even Lorien couldn't help but wonder how many more backlashes he could take. Well, it seems that this is the end. I would have liked to end him with my own hands, however, somehow, this is also an appropriate ending for him. Thinking of this, Lorien couldn't help but shake his head and wonder how much feedback he'd receive from Sukuna's death and how much he'd improve. After all, we can't forget that the main purpose of creating this dream path is for dream path walkers to kill and devour the negative creatures they kill. Not to mention, that as the path creator, he gets feedback anyways every time a dream path walker or nightmare spirit dies. Come on, just die already. I have a power system to share worldwide. Chapter 247, One Last Strike. Well, while I have a power system to share and I am kinda in a hurry, it's still a pity that I couldn't fully showcase my power. And here I was getting all excited. Shaking his head, Lorien looked deeply into Sukuna's scarlet eyes before finally stating out loud as if to declare the end of the battle while also somehow encouraging his opponent. Do you understand now? It is here where I stand, the junction between dreams and reality. It is here where the laws of nature are overshadowed and cause and effect become chaotic. This is the difference between having the power to affect the natural laws of the universe and being unable to. No matter how much you try, no matter how much energy you have, if you don't reach it, then it's completely useless. So, it's either you achieve it now, or you die trying. Huff. Finishing his speech, Lorien immediately fell silent as he waited patiently for Sukuna's inevitable demise or for some sort of miracle to appear. Swish. Puff. Swish. Puff. Swish. Puff. However, as far as Lorien could tell, this seemed quite unlikely as just in the span of a few minutes Sukuna got backlashed tens of times reducing him to a minimum state of survival. A few more strikes at most, he can't survive more than that. Quickly analyzed Lorien, understanding that everything was basically over. Right now, if it weren't for him still having to respect his opponent, he would have already turned away and got busy with something else. Tisk, it seems that my excitement was all for naught. However, it's not like I didn't gain anything from this. After all, once Sukuna dies, as the one who killed him I'll absorb/devour all his power. Usually, this won't do me much, however, considering Sukuna's power level, this should give me a great boost in power. It's just that while Lorien was imagining the strength level he'd reach after absorbing the feedback from Sukuna's death, he didn't realize that while his opponent was at death's door, he had grown ever so close to reaching his goal. Come on! Come on! Come on! It's finally there, the true core and essence of all things. The clogs that keep this world turning like an intricate machine. It's right in front of me. Ha 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 ha. At this moment, if anyone were to stand inside Sukuna's inner world and manifest his experience into a fictive scene, they'd notice the long path full of bloody footsteps behind Sukuna and the large indestructible glass-like door in front of him. However, as expressive as this scene was, what was even more so was the gradual destruction and collapse of the bloody path that Sukuna had just walked representing his approaching doom. So, despite having reached the door leading to all the wonders of the world, Sukuna's actual situation was quite desperate. Damn it! Damn it! I'm so close! Gritting his teeth, Sukuna sensed the impending doom approaching him from the back like the wolf from Puss in the Boots. So, realizing that he had no other choice, Sukuna finally decided to burn everything away, even his soul, just to reach that point and at least tear apart some flesh from his opponent. Bastard, even if I can't enjoy the results of my hard work, I won't let you enjoy yourself either. So, die alongside me, bastard. You see, Sukuna was able to reach this breaking point thanks to many factors such as his state between life and death, Lorien's use of power which made the laws of the world more perceivable, Sukuna's own knowledge, and finally Lorien's indulgence which gave him time to even try and achieve it. Moreover, there was also the most important factor which was Sukuna's switch to the dream path as the characteristics of this power system and its proximity and harmony with the laws of the world played a very important role in allowing Sukuna to walk this far on the bloody path. If it weren't for all of this, then no matter how talented, old, and knowledgeable Sukuna was, he wouldn't have been able to even take one step forward, not to mention this many. However, despite all of this, it seems that there was one last push missing, and this push finally took the form of Sukuna burning what was left of his body and soul to reach it. The moment this was decided, Lorien, whose attention was quickly diminishing alongside Sukuna's state, suddenly snapped his eyes open as he looked seriously at Sukuna. There, Lorien could clearly hear the sound of something burning, the noise it made sounded like the crackles caused by wood burning on a fire camp. However, as knowledgeable and insightful as Lorien is, he quickly realized that what was actually burning was Sukuna's soul and body. Another effect of his evolved ability. Didn't expect that he would use it like this. Crackle. Crackle. Bzzzzzzzzz. It's just that despite this, what attracted Lorien's attention was actually the future that was forcefully shown to him as a warning by his chrono eyes the moment Sukuna started burning his soul as firewood. This is... Hey aha! He actually did it. With his eyes taking a small glimpse at the future, Lorien, who was looking somewhat bored, immediately entered a combat-ready state as he got ready for the attack that was about to come his way. And indeed, it is as Lorien had foreseen, as moments after Lorien got ready, Sukuna, who was continuously suffering backlashes, suddenly growled like a beast, his killing intent reaching its peak. Die! Following this howl that seemed to originate from the abyss, what was left of Sukuna's body suddenly collapsed into particles, unable to handle the accumulated damage. However, with his disappearance, Sukuna left two surprises for Lorien, the first of which is the feedback that will allow Lorien to further improve his power, and the second is his last attack before disappearing. It's just that different from all the other attacks that he had previously launched, this is a strike that had truly reached the semi-law level. Moreover, it is one launched with its owner burning his soul, so it's imaginable how powerful it is. So, all things considered, if Lorien wants to enjoy the feedback he received from Sukuna, he better survive this attack first. Crack! Swish! Chapter 248, Beyond the Limit. Swish! Gazing intently at the location where Sukuna had just disappeared, Lorien, who was getting ready to defend against the incoming attack, suddenly shook in place as he finally received Sukuna's first gift. In an instant, be it his physical strength, energy, or soul, Lorien felt a considerable increase in all these aspects. It even allowed his divine sense, which is linked to his soul, to increase from its original 5,600 meters range to 6,024 meters. It's just that despite this visible increase in power, Lorien couldn't help but frown as he sensed that something was wrong. Hey! Why is the increase so small? It should have been much larger. Is it because he burned his soul and body before dying? Analyzing the gains he received from Sukuna's death once again, the frown on Lorien's face grew larger as he felt very much cheated after having his anticipation raised so much for nothing. However, before Lorien could fully let his annoyance sink in, a large amount of luck suddenly condensed above his head before quickly submerging him. This luck was so large that it allowed Lorien, who was only one step away from gaining the world authority, to finally reach it. This. It seems that even the world doesn't like Sukuna, only Gage probably likes him. However, sensing the strong connection he now had with the world, Lorien, who was previously complaining, threw all the negative feelings out of the window as he instead focused on the world authority that he had just gained. Right now, with the world authority as the crown, Lorien could clearly feel that he only needed one through to wear it. However, as much as he wanted to do it right here and now, Lorien didn't know what would happen when he did this, so, instead of betting on chance, Lorien decided to play it safer and instead deal with Sukuna's attack before doing anything else. Bzzz. Swiftly turning his attention back to the incoming attack, Lorien couldn't help but be thankful for his powerful consciousness, which allowed him to think and do all the above in a fraction of a second. After all, despite looking like it took quite a long time, all the above actions were happening inside of Lorien's mind and only took a fraction of a second to do. If it were a normal person, not to mention complaining then reacting to the newfound power before making a new choice, said normal person would most likely be submerged by the attack before he even realizes that it's coming. However, this has a limit after all, as one can't live inside of his own mind forever and evade the inevitable. So, after turning his full attention towards the attack, Lorien started weighing his options. Evade, defend, or face it with another attack of my own. This attack has fully reached the law level and is completely amplified by it. If I were to evade it, Japan would most likely be cut in half, which would make the casualties immeasurable. Frankly, if this were an attack that I couldn't defend against, then I would simply evade it. After all, I won't trade my life for those of people I don't even know. However, I feel like I can do it, so it's now between defending or attacking. Reaching here, Lorien gazed deeply at the slash that continued to head his way before a crazed smile appeared on his face. Ha 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 ha. I was never someone to simply get beaten silently. You may not be able to hear me. However, I've decided. I'll show my respect to you, an opponent who used his life to go beyond the limit. Let me defeat you head on. Moreover, I can finally fulfill my wish of going all out. Declaring this, Lorien, who was previously standing upright, suddenly took a sword, drawing form as the sword in his hand shone with a bright multicolored light. Dream/reality, all in one. In an instant, following Lorien's use of his ability, all the laws of the world seemed to merge, condense, and sublimate above the sword blade. It seems that instead of using separate orders/abilities like erase or destroy to target the incoming attack, Lorien finally opted for a never-used-before option, which is using all the abilities he can think of and condensing them above his blade and then launching them in one go in a slash-like form. Right now, the power above Lorien's sword merged, condensed, and sublimated so much that it returned to its origin. Right now, this power can be called world power. It is the power of order that holds the world together. Moreover, while doing so, Lorien didn't forget to use his reality warping power to also directly target the slash coming his way. Reality, erase. However, despite the effort, it seems that his opponent's slash didn't seem to care about any of this as it continued indomitably on its way toward Lorien, cutting everything in its path apart. Be it the automatic defense by the world formed by the power of cause and effect or the law power standing in the way, nothing was able to stop it. If it were any of Sukuna's previous attacks, it would have been instantly erased without any resistance. However, this slash was very different from the ones before it as it cut apart the lines of cause and effect, disrupting their effect and rendering them useless. Moreover, even Lorien's use of reality warping didn't seem to do much on the surface as it only caused the attack to slow down a bit and get slightly weaker. However, seeing this, Lorien instantly understood that if he wanted to simply stop the attack, he could just spam this ability and erase it before it reached him. Moreover, there was also the option of simply using his reality warping power with enough energy, which would also do the job. Realizing this, Lorien quickly understood that he had somewhat overestimated Sukuna's attack and that he had probably overreacted. No, it's not that I overestimated his attack, it's just that I didn't understand how the battles at the law level are fought. Well, I now have a better understanding of it. It seems that when the laws are the same level, they simply cancel each other, so the moment that happens, the battle turns quickly into that of energy instead of law. Well, whatever, while this is interesting and all, let's leave it for later. After all, I still have an attack to face. Moreover, while I can use other ways to erase it, now that we've reached here, there is no reason to back down. I want to see it, my most powerful attack. How strong is it? Bzzz. Swish. Zingug. Chapter 249, Sever. Unable to predict the damage that'll be caused by his all-out attack, Lorien altered his sword drawing stance, slightly changing his attack from a horizontal to a vertical slash to reduce the area of attack. Doing so, Lorien then used his divine sense to meticulously chart a course in which his next attack could pass safely so that it doesn't affect bystanders. After all, with all the power he put into it, he really doesn't know how far his attack will fly. With this in mind, Lorien quickly found a great angle of attack where there are no humans to be affected. Moreover, this path leads straight to the desolate expanse of the North Pacific Ocean, very far from any human activities. Finishing all of this and making sure that he didn't overlook anything, Lorien's face suddenly turned serious as his body tensed up ready for the release. I've put all I have into it. This is truly my most powerful attack, a slash aided by the world itself, a slash beyond the limit. Bzzz. Swish. Zingug. In an instant, under the world's expectant eyes, Lorien suddenly slashed forward with incredible speed. However, weirdly enough, despite the great speed, Lorien's sword appeared to be unsheathing in slow motion under the influence of some unknown rules allowing everyone to observe it in all of its glory. It's just that contrary to the unsheathing of the sword itself, the multicolored sword energy created by this slash swiftly moved forward at an incredible speed, not giving anyone time to react to it. Swish. With a combination of powers such as space, time, cause and effect, alongside erasure, destruction, dream, and reality in a single attack, this slash was nothing but normal. It's just that the degree of abnormality even exceeded the attacker's own expectations, as following its release, Lorien immediately realized that this attack was unlike anything he used before. This was truly an unprecedented slash. Zeeg. Abruptly appearing in the path of Sukuna's attack, Lorien's multicolored slash soon came into contact with its opposition. Puff. However, different from what many have expected, there were no explosions, stalemate, or anything of the sort, as the moment the two attacks made contact, Sukuna's sacrificial slash was abruptly cut in half before disappearing while Lorien's attack continued moving forward unhindered. Seeing this, a smile started manifesting itself on Lorien's face as he knew that he could finally finish his journey in this world. It's just that before this smile could fully be drawn on his face, Lorien's facial expressions abruptly froze as he suddenly realized something wrong with his attack. Right now, if anyone were to observe the fundamental laws of the world, they'd be either awestruck or completely frightened by the scene in front of them. This is because as the slash continued on its way, the entire world seemed to come alive, using everything it had to assist it. This caused the slash to show no signs of getting weakened or reduced with time. Instead, the more it moved forward, the stronger and larger it seemed to be. Damn it! Why are the laws of the world actively empowering it? Immediately recognizing the culprit as the world itself, Lorien's attention was then immediately attracted to the world authority that he had previously ignored. So it's you. Even though I haven't worn the crown yet and become a king, I can still be considered a prince. Quickly deducing the situation, Lorien immediately realized that the slash that had just been released was basically a brief picture of what he would be able to do when he truly reaches the law level. After all, the level of assistance and boost given by the world at this moment is something that Lorien would be able to do only when he reaches the law level. Realizing this, Lorien decided to just observe that attack so he could get a better understanding of this level. Moreover, now that the attack had already gone beyond his perception range A.K. The range his reality warping power was effective, all Lorien could do now was just watch. Well, it's not like I can do anything about it anyway. Zing. It's just that the more Lorien watched the more frightened he became, as after piercing through thousands of buildings and cutting all of them vertically in half while leaving behind a mirror-like slit wherever it passed, the slash finally reached the seaside, directly impacting the water of the North Pacific Ocean. And it is exactly at this moment that Lorien's true fright began, as contrary to his expectations, the slash didn't start weakening after impacting the seawater. Instead, it just continued forward, not caring a bit about it. Moreover, as the empowerment continued as time went on, the slash continued increasing in size, quickly reaching more than a kilometer in length and 100 meters in width. So, as anyone could predict at this moment, things didn't go well for the sea life encountering this slash. Furthermore, not to mention sea life, even the ocean itself wasn't spared, as a colossal chasm was born wherever the slash passed, which disrupted the ocean's natural flow. And to add insult to injury, because of the nature of the attack, the water wasn't able to move back to the valley to fill the missing spots. At this very moment, if anyone were to look at the North Pacific Ocean from above, they'd probably think that someone took a large knife and decided to sever the entire ocean in two. Furthermore, despite all that was being said and narrated, all of this was actually happening in a fraction of a second. So, for all people other than Lorien, one moment there was one North Pacific Ocean, and the next, there were two. Hey, it's getting dangerously close to the American continent. If it reaches it, God knows how many will die. Seeing this and realizing how dangerous and out of control the situation became, even Lorien couldn't help but start feeling worried. However, he really couldn't do anything at this moment. It's very far from my range, so I can't do much to it. Moreover, even if I wear the world authority now, I don't know if it'll be instantaneous or not. However, even a fraction of a second is enough for the attack to reach its target, so it's completely useless. Quickly denying his only options, Lorien couldn't but look at the slash in worry. Damn it, so it's all on the world now. It either stops empowering it, or the North American continent may truly become two continents. Come on. Come on. Stop the empowerment. Do you want to self-destruct? Chapter 250, Clear Consciousness. Swish. Gazing at the slash that continued advancing toward the North American continent through his connection to the nightmare realm which covered the whole world, Lorien's worry and fear continued to climb up as his heart was getting filled with dread. After all, despite all that he usually says, he doesn't want to be the cause of death of an incalculable number of humans without any good reason. If such deaths were caused as collateral damage from an inevitable battle, then Lorien wouldn't bother much with it. However, as this attack was something he just launched for fun to test his power, the act carries an entirely different meaning to it. Rather than necessity, the death of these people will be without reason or objective. Damn it! I have to stop it somehow. Thinking of this, Lorien couldn't help but think of the network of dream trees that covered the globe. Maybe I can use them as signal boosters or as a link to launch my ability from. It's just that if I do so, I can't use my own energy to execute my ability. This means that I'll have to use the stored dream energy. Tisk, if I were to do this, the energy loss would be immense. Thinking of this, Lorien couldn't help but feel a bit hesitant about losing a great amount of energy to save some people he didn't even know. Is it worth it? It's just that the moment this idea came to mind, Lorien swiftly extinguished it as resolve quickly filled his eyes. Energy can be accumulated again, having a clear consciousness is much more important. Finally coming to this conclusion, Lorien's entire being suddenly calmed down as his previous concern and anxiety vanished into thin air. Moreover, despite all of this, Lorien still maintained a lot of hope for the attack to disappear on its own. After all, the chances of the world continuing to empower an attack to destroy itself were quite slim. There's no way this actually happens, right? At least, it's not logical. Previously, I just destroyed a portion of the city and I got sanctioned, not to mention now. Thinking of the previous forceful remover of luck, Lorien couldn't help but feel grateful for getting the world authority before launching this attack, otherwise, God knows what the consequences would have been. It's just that as Lorien thought of this, he didn't consider the fact that he might not have been able to launch an attack of this scale in the first place without the boost he got from the world authority. However, ignoring all of this and continuing on this theoretical line of thought, if that were to happen and considering the fact that he had just severed the entire North Pacific Ocean, there is a great possibility of him getting kicked out of the world. After all, worlds interact with their citizens and with foreigners a lot more differently. It's basically like someone owning a house, even if he destroys it, it's his to deal with, so there are basically no problems other than finding somewhere else to live. However, imagine someone entering someone else's house uninvited and then beginning to destroy everything in sight. In such a situation, getting kicked out is actually an act of benevolence. After all, if such a thing were to happen in the land of freedom and guns, getting shot twice in the face would be a very possible reaction. Well, I just hope things never come down to this, be it now or in the future. However, this also reminded me of a problem. It seems that I have to find a way to trick worlds into thinking that I am an aboriginal. This would make things much easier for me. However, just as Lorien thought of this, he quickly shook his head and turned his attention back to the slash. It's almost there. Observing the attack that almost reached the coast of the Washington Quinault Reservation, Lorien's hand couldn't help but start twitching at high frequency as he didn't know what to do. Damn it, should I gamble and wait or assist now? Gritting his teeth, Lorien finally looked into all the people standing in the attack's way through the nightmare realm before finally coming to a decision. Fuck it. I'll just gather more energy in the future. Finally coming to a decision, Lorien didn't hesitate any longer and instantly sprang into action. However, different from his usual approach of direct confrontation, Lorien decided to take a different one this time. After all, not to mention how difficult it would be for him to block that attack from his current position, the energy that would be expanded to do so would be astronomical. With this in mind, Lorien immediately began thinking about different ways to go about this and began evaluating the advantages and constraints of each one. However, knowing that he didn't have much time, Lorien quickly settled on one which he judged to be the most appropriate. Making his choice, Lorien immediately made contact with the network of dream trees and gave the order. Dream and reality, teleport living creatures away upon contact. Bzzz. The moment this happened, a multicolored light instantly appeared on top of the Quinault Reservation before turning into a barrier that stood at the coast as if to block the incoming attack. Swish! However, that was only from a surface-level observation, as the moment the two made contact, the barrier instantly turned into multicolored rays that were absorbed by the attack. Seeing this, Lorien immediately heaved a sigh of relief, knowing that his objective had been achieved. However, at what cost? Still linked to the network of dream trees, Lorien couldn't help but cringe after looking at the remaining energy reserves. Damn it, a full 25% got evaporated with the attack. And there I still need to use the remaining energy to launch the dream path and modify some other things. There probably won't be left much for me to absorb. But at least, with this, no humans will be killed. However, while this was true and no living being will be affected by the attack, the same can't be said about all other things standing in the attack's way. Zing-ug. Swish! In an instant, the attack finally landed on the mainland, severing everything in its path apart. It first began from the reserve, central Washington, Moses Lake, Montana, before finally entering Canada as it cut right through Manitoba, Ontario, right through Hudson Bay, and finally Quebec before reaching the Labrador Sea. Only after reaching here did the attack start disappearing, as it seems that the world consciousness finally reacted to what had just happened. Seeing this, Lorien couldn't help but smile helplessly as beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. Thank God that I reacted quick enough. Otherwise, it would have been the most traumatic chapter of human history. However, this isn't a complete loss, as I now have a better understanding of the law level. It seems that I have previously greatly underestimated it. Shaking his head, Lorien couldn't help but smile helplessly at his new discovery as he wiped the beads of sweat that had unknowingly appeared on his forehead. Well, it seems that finding an equal opponent to fight in the future would be a greater challenge than I had previously expected. But who knows, maybe the next world would be a bit more exciting. Thinking of this possibility, the helpless smile on Lorien's face quickly turned into a joyful one as his entire being was filled with excitement. Infinite world, infinite possibilities, I really love this feeling of absolute freedom where I can chase the unknown however I want. However, Lorien didn't engross himself much in these feelings as right now he wanted to declare the end of the battle to all those watching. So, with this in mind, he raised both hands to the sky and declared out loud in a defining tone. This battle is over. NIT is now I declare the beginning of a new era.
Thanks for listening.